Good afternoon, fellow councillors, members of staff, members of the public and media. Would you please remain upstanding for the council prayer. Almighty God, grant to us all needed guidance, wisdom and judgment as we face the tasks before us, and enable us now and always worthily to discharge the sacred trust placed by the people in our hands. Amen.
Amen.
If I could just remind you, we're live streaming, so everything that happens in here can be observed by the wider public interest. Welcome to those who are joining live stream, by the way. Where do we look?
On down the camera. Other reading.
Okay. We got any apologies?
Is there to your worship?
Councillor Abbott, Councillor Edmonds.
I'll move those, your worship.
Second those, your worship.
Moved and seconded. There's a discussion. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Public forum, we have David Pottinger. Welcome to the meeting, Mr. Pottinger.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. Members of the Invercargill City Council. I'm actually taking this opportunity to offer you some words of encouragement. I see on the agenda there's an item related to working together, and in particular the media protocol. I was here last month and I saw what happened when it was revealed, and that was an interesting journey. And I heard lots of things being said about lack of freedom of speech, the death of democracy as we know it, all sorts of things. And I find it interesting because I also watched when Councillor Lush was up there standing next to yourself and reading through what constitutes, I guess, the oath that he must follow. And I guess all the other councillors have followed. And one phrase struck me in particular, and that was, and I paraphrase here, to act in the best interests of the people of Invercargill. And in the prayer, it even says the sacred duty. And what I'm encouraging the committee to do, the council to do, over the next wee while, is to remember that and hold that foremost in their actions. You are looking to act in the best interests of the people of Invercargill. Now, there's been discussion as to whether you need a media protocol. I know it's part of the Thompson report, whether we need certain constraints. I've been talking to a number of ratepayers around here, no doubt you have as well. And a lot of people say to me, we shouldn't need these rules. We should rely on the good sense and sensibilities of the people we elected to the position of leading the city. And I happen to agree. I think what happens is there are other things that get in the road, and that's why I encourage the council to think about the important thing that you have been elected here for. Because in a couple of months, in June, there's an important time coming up, the review of whether or not the two extra learned gentlemen that we have here are needed. Now, I'm sure they have other things to do in their lives. They wouldn't be too upset if they weren't needed after June. Is that right, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Grant? That you could find other employment, you wouldn't be homeless, wandering the streets. And I would think, instead of, because it's been budgeted for, close to $750,000 has been budgeted for this exercise. That's $30 per each rate-paying property. And if you said to people out there, hey, $30 to have these guys, they're very nice people, but if that was more like 15 or was $16, then I'm sure the people of Invercargill would be saying, hey, we're making progress, we're doing well. They've both been involved with freezing works and meat industry, so they're used to having changes of occupation, I'm sure, like some of us. Now, I also saw the council here show a very empathic side when we were talking about the increase in rents on the council-owned properties, and I saw a very good side of the council. You were caring about people. So, all I'm saying is I encourage you, when there is discussion about what is needed to get the council back on track, what is needed to make sure that the Department of Internal Affairs is not prying into our business, is to make sure that the decisions are made in the best interests of the people of Invercargill. Now, if somebody's worrying what the demise of democracy looks like, I've got one word for you: Tauranga. Do we want to go there? Do we want to be seen in that position? I don't think we do. I don't think you do. I know many of you. I've known you for many years. I've known one of you for all his life. I mean, I know you don't want to be there. I don't know. Maybe I'm acting the part of the good angel sitting on one shoulder saying, hey, guys, do what's right. It's in the oath. It's in the prayer. And all I'm saying is we of Invercargill rely on you 13 people to help lead us, to guide us. We have faith in you. So please remember that. And I do encourage you to behave as I know you can. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you very much, Your Worship, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Pottinger? Well, thank you very much for your encouraging comments, and we do see the bright side of council very often, and it's certainly we're undertaking some major tasks in the near future, so we appreciate your support.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Interest register, any changes, councillors? No, being none. Receiving the confirmation of minutes. Oh, got another screen here. Minutes.
All right, Your Worship, that's just our process, that councillors can see what they're about to consider.
Thank you. 23rd of February, the minutes of meeting of council of the 23rd.
Move those, Your Worship.
Thank you. It's been moved. Seconder.
I second those, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. In discussion, questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
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 Carried. Minutes of the Infrastructural Services Committee meeting held on the 2nd of March.
I will move those, Your Worship.
I'll second them, Your Worship.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Questions? Discussion? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Minutes of the Performance Policy and Partnerships Committee held on the 9th of March.
Happy to move those, Your Worship.
Second, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. The report of the proposed road name change in relation to the subdivision of 360 Bainfield Road. That council adopt the following proposed road name. The proposed road lot 360 be named Highland Rise, as it is the developer's preferred name and meets the council's naming conventions.
I'm happy to move that recommendation, Your Worship.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
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 Against, carried. Now we move on to item 7 on my screen. We could consider the items on the public agenda. The report of administrative matters. Mr. Pete Thompson will be here to speak? Oh, there we are. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, councillors. This report with the election of Councillor Marcus Lush puts council in a position where it can now determine appointments to the various committees, subcommittees and other organisations that have vacancies as a result of the resignation of Councillor Biddle. So this report outlines councillors' current positions on the various committees and recommends councillors to fill the vacant positions, which are noted in red text. I'll take the report as read and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any objections? Considerations? All right. Update from Project Governance Group. Jeff Grant. Oh no, we better put it.
I'm sorry, there are a number of motions, recommendations in Mr Thompson's report that council needs to consider.
Okay, so this, on the screen in front of us, we've got items from A to H.
Well, sorry, Your Worship, if I can kick things off, I'm happy to move the three recommendations. Recommendation 2, which includes items A to H, dealing with the named councillors for appointments, and just noting that there is still a vacancy if a councillor wishes to fill for an alternate on WasteNet.
Thank you for that. Did everyone hear that all right? 1, 2 and 3 are together.
I'll second the motion.
Mr Thompson, have you got... Oh, sorry, Councillor Crackett.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there are no nominations or self-appointments, expressions of interest for WasteNet, might I suggest that we have all of council as an alternate, in which case Darren or myself or Councillor Ludlow or myself are not available?
Councillor Arnold is already an alternate.
Yep.
There's a vacancy for another one.
And there's a vacancy for a second.
Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, look, since I'm Chair of Infrastructure, I think I could put my name forward as an alternate. I mean, it's a rare occasion. I haven't seen many over the 10 years I've been here that the alternate being used since Councillor Arnold is first alternate. I'll be second alternate.
I'm happy as the mover of the motion, Your Worship, to include Councillor Pottinger as the alternate, second alternate for WasteNet.
Comfortable with that, Your Worship, as the Chair.
Any further discussion, questions? Mr Thompson, is that all right with you?
Nothing further from me, Your Worship.
I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
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 Against, carried. Is there any, oh, that's my report. Report on working together. Update from Project Governance Group presented by Mr Jeff Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is it okay if I do it from here?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is the second report in terms of the governance group to the council. There are 5 recommendations and 1 for noting in terms of the progress. So I'll just briefly run through them. The first one is just that in order for the governance group to work in a sensible way, seek to have an alternate for each of the members on the governance group, which are listed there under 1. The chairs group, which is chaired by Lindsay McKenzie, has got the attachment A, which is the appendix setting out terms of reference for the chairs group. Then under number 3 is the revised brief for the working group of strategic projects and supporting the LTP. This is a reflection on that particular working group that the view was that the progress on the LTP, both in the workshop process and both in the staff information and everything, was well on track. And so what the LTP progress will be for this working group is to look at a review post the LTP process and look at setting up a mechanism for the next LTP in the triennial. So this is looking forward in terms of making sure that the process is well governed going forward. So that's the change that's been made and recommended by PGG for that particular working group. And then there's just the updated framework for an Appendix C. And then on 6, which is the set out for the methodology and timing for evaluating progress against the report. So PGG, you will have heard, for those that were at the Risk and Audit Committee, Risk and Assurance Committee meeting yesterday, there's some discussion in terms of the external advisors report that we would frame up for PGG a slightly more formal framework in terms of the reporting, but also here in 6 was that there will be an evaluation process to measure against that in terms of the progress, and that was set out in a range of things, including the workshop, the IOD survey. Just in terms of the budget, there's a comment around the budget, and that's to say that the 310,000 allocated for all of this work is well under that, and will track well under the cost of the 310 by the 30th of June. Just a couple of other matters that are not directly related to that. Firstly is that the progress around the draft charter, well mentioned, is the intention that that will come back to council as soon as the draft is finalised, and we'll probably look at it just having a workshop to finalise that off, and on the basis of that, Lindsay and I have both expressed an interest that we would have a council group, just the councillors. We'll sit down. We'd like to have a discussion about where we've got to so far, what bits are working in terms of our involvement, and what bits the councillors may want to see through to the period of 30th of June. So we'll look at trying to do that as soon as possible in the very near future. So, Your Worship, that's all. Any questions or
Thank you.
the recommendations would be good.
Questions, councillors? Well, there be none. I'll put it, we've moved it and seconded.
No.
Oh, Councillor Soper, sorry, I didn't see you.
I'm happy to move the recommendations, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to
Moved
second
and
the motion.
seconded. Discussion, questions? Councillor Ludlow.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, thanks, Jeff, for the report and for the work that you and Lindsay are doing for us and with us. I take on board your suggestion that we have a councillor-only briefing. I think it would be useful from our perspective if the sooner that we could do that, the better. Can I ask how much time you would need to lead in before being able to?
Oh, I could do it tomorrow. 45 minutes, and I think we just need about 45 minutes.
You know, how many days you would need to prepare for it? Because essentially we've got 2 extraordinary meetings of PPP and infrastructural services on Monday.
I think if we have a look at where it fits in, we're happy to do it next week. Yep.
Thank you.
I'm like you. I think Lindsay and I would be keener to do it sooner rather than later. We're just starting to look at a prioritising around phase 2, and we'd like to raise a couple of issues with you in that discussion as well.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Well, we certainly appreciate your input. Yeah, Mr. Grant. Move on. Oh, no. I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Mayor's report's been tabled. And just covers some topical issues that we're dealing with, like Three Waters. I'll put it to the vote. Oh, sorry.
So I was going to move, Your Worship, that we receive your report, your tabled report.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion or questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Items of urgent business. Any raised there? No.
Your Worship,
Yes.
it's not particularly urgent, but I'd just like to make a statement to thank the staff for all the work they've been doing over the last few months. Sometimes that goes unheralded, I think. Some of them work extremely long hours, and I'd just like to formally say that we all appreciate the amount of work that's going on behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any items under that? Move. All right, well, we've come to the part of the agenda where the public are to be excluded, and thank you very much for your presence here. It certainly helps to see who we're actually dealing with.
I'll move that with the exception of Jeff Grant and Lindsay McKenzie that we go into public excluded, Your Worship.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.